Real quick, we're talking about configuration. So these guys here, these ODBC and JSON, these are the most complex ones to figure out because you have to learn, you have to know how to write the queries, you have to know where the data is, you have to know what the APIs look like. For other stuff, like if we had Pi, for instance, I'm going to install a Pi interface. I'm going to show you how simple this is. Here I got a name, where it's going. My server happens to be localhost, that's great, and PyDemo works as my security. And there is now no configuration. It's configured. So just to show you what that looks like, if I go to a KPI here, let's do a Pi test. So this is a sample on the other end of the spectrum, which is an easy interface because it's an SDK and it's all packaged and we don't have to figure out what the path looks like. I can just say sinusoid, and let me make sure I get that interface here, and I can say Pi, and let's put this guy on the home screen. So that's no query. So this is the difference between a packaged SDK and something where you have to write a query. So now I got my sinusoid graph here, it came right out, got a trend, scroll back in time, all that good stuff works, and all I needed to do was the name of, in this case it's called a Pi tag. But this packaged SDK doesn't have the 4 queries. They're all under the covers. Don't need to know about them because it's defined by the SDK. So that's the difference between something where you have to write queries or something where you have to parse JSON versus an SDK type interface, which is, you just need to pass it a parameter.
And just to repeat one more thing we've talked about a few times, but it does sometimes confuse people, even on the query-based ones. Once you've done this set of 3 queries, max 4 queries for an interface, that interface is done. You don't ever go back and write those queries again.
No. If someone now says, you know what, I need process data from this Oracle server, then that's a new interface. But if someone says, you know what, instead of random and sawtooth, I also have a thing called, whatever, foobar, and that's just a new KPI using the same interface. So kind of conversely on that, if you guys are out there and you're finding a lot of this kind of IT stuff, right, you're dealing with a lot of that, and you find some product that people are using a lot, and it has an SDK, like a .NET SDK, let us know. And if this is something you're seeing over and over again and you don't want to write queries to a database, and there is an SDK, then we can add an interface. And like I say, once we have access to a system, that's kind of the key part, so it's hard to write it in a black box. We have access to a system that we can use here in development. We have access to the SDK. And once we have a little bit of help as to, someone knows, oh, you need to call this and this and this, we can actually productize that interface in a couple of days.
Okay.
So when you start to
currently, okay. So currently, what are the packages there? So inbuilt packages. Do we have any list?
Yep, there's those. So if we look at this AF interface is for OSIsoft. It's a database that they have called AF. Excel is another generic one where you write queries. Inmation is a packaged SDK for a company up this part of us that we can get data out of. JSON we've done, ODBC we've done, we write queries. OLAP is an open query thing. OLADB is an open query thing. Pi ones are more OSI. Proficy is stored, is completely packaged, there's nothing to write. Smart Signal is completely packaged, nothing to write. SQL Server interface is, again, queries, used more for bulk. Tempo IQ is nothing to write, and the Wonderware ones are nothing to write. So we don't have a lot of packaged ones. These ones are very generic, and it's just there's no APIs for them. I mean, if it's if we had a system like, for instance, ODBC, the Proficy Historian OLADB, that is using OLADB under the covers, but the queries are fixed. So we packaged it as a packaged sort of interface. But when there's open systems that we don't know about with no APIs, if you come up with something, then you guys can figure out that, hey, based on SCOM, people always want to look at backups. Say, oh, maybe we can come up with a series of fixed queries, even if it's not a packaged interface. Maybe the queries that you've written here are the same always. So then we have a library of queries. So then you install an ODBC interface, and here's your queries that you guys already know about that you used already at 4 other customers.